Good evening. My name is Edward Sanshin Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest and guiding teacher here at the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're an affiliate of Empty Moon Zen. Our ancestor, Keizon Jokin, recorded the Enlightenment stories of our Soto ancestors. Here's a tale he set out in his collection entitled The Transmission of the Lamp. Once, close to 1500 years ago now, the monk Dongshan asked Yunyan, "Who can hear the teachings of the insentient?" Yunyan said, "It can be heard by the insentient." Dongshan said, or asked, "Do you hear it, Master?" Yunyan said, "If I heard it, then you would not hear my teaching." Dongshan answered, "That being the case, then I do not hear your teaching." Yunyan replied, "You don't even hear my teaching. How could you hear the teaching of the insentient?" Dongshan was enlightened on hearing this and responded in verse, "Wondrous, marvelous, the teaching of the insentient are inconceivable. If you listen with your ears, you won't understand. When you hear with the eyes, then you will know." Dongshan and Yunyan asked us to be present with our whole being, just as the hills and valleys attend the earth in their wholeness. Now, when my wife and I sent our daughter off to UC Berkeley, she lived in the Oscar Wilde Co-op, only a couple of blocks from the Berkeley Stadium. I remember walking over to look at it after Jenny told me that the Hayward Fault, that uniquely Californian harbinger of doom, ran right through the Berkeley Stadium, between the goalposts of the football field, and sure enough, you could see the stonework over the entrance gate separating as two sides of the fault line engaged in a kind of tectonic dance as the Berkeley Hills walked. After we had settled into the Bay Area, perhaps closer to that fault line than was strictly comfortable, we came to realize that the roads of Oakland were as potholed as the roads we had known back in Boston. But of course, not from winter wear and tear, but from the very movement of the earth, carrying its own conversation under its breath, talking to itself, just waiting to teach us a lesson in humility. Back there in Boston, the potholes had filled the streets each winter, a testament to the power of water. For with each thaw, the snow would melt, filling the tiny cracks and crevices in the macadam. And as the water froze the next night, it would expand, widening the cracks in a cycle that depleted the budget of the Public Works Department and wrecked cars, trucks, and buses, not to mention my bicycle. The polarly charged water molecules, demonstrating the power of naked protons and electrons, twisted as they cooled and solidified into rings in such a way as to increase their volume, making ice less dense than liquid water, and along with cracking open the roadway, ensuring, through their increase in volume, that ice floated on top of that water, a miraculous attribute that, interestingly, allows life to exist on Earth. Other liquids solidify from the bottom up, something that would kill off living creatures during long winters. Ice insulates the water below, allowing fish to winter over and allowing the pavement to crack open each December. Water can be all-powerful. It was not for nothing that the pre-Socratic philosopher Thales saw water as the first principle of existence. Yes, mountains and hills walk, and the rivers, the streams, the rain, the fog, and dew flow. Winter here on the East Coast is coming to an end, an early end, and today was a day to walk with those mountains and hills, a day to flow with the waters, with the rivers, even though my walks today were limited to the sidewalks and neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. I think back to those days in Oakland when, while waiting for the on-demand water heater to warm up my shower water, I'd carefully collect the still cold excess water in a bucket there in the shower, water that I'd then pour out onto the garden out back. I got so used to this that when I went back east for Boundless Way Ongas at the Worcester Temple, I was surprised to learn that there was no bucket in the shower. Nor is there one now here in D.C. or in central Pennsylvania, where the concern is more about floods than about drought. Inspired by the painting known as Mountains and Rivers Without End by an unknown Chinese artist of the 13th century, and depicting the form of mountains and rivers that emerged from the emptiness of the blank spaces on the canvas, and slid back into it, Gary Snyder wrote, "Walking on walking, underfoot earth turns. Streams and mountains never stay the same." Our ancestor in the Dharma, Eihei Dogen, knew both mountains and rivers, living as he did in the wilds of Japan, wrapped in the winter snows blown in from the nearby Sea of Japan. And he wrote of them in his Son Sui Gyo, the Mountains and Rivers Sutra in the Shobogenzo. And just as Dogen lived in those mountains, so the mountains themselves were alive. As Dogen says, mountains do not lack the qualities of mountains, therefore they always abide in ease and always walk. And make no mistake, stand on a trail, look out across the horizon, be with those hills, those mountains as they stride across the countryside. Those hills that hold within them, therefore, the very being of the once lofty peaks they once were, and in some places still are. Walk with them, dance with them, lift up your face and let the rains wash over you. You, Dogen writes, should know that eastern mountains, traveling on water, is the bones and marrow of the Buddha ancestors. And he goes on. All mountains walk with their toes on all waters and splash there. Just as Jesus walked on the storm-driven Sea of Galilee, so mountains dance, rivers flow. The mountains, rivers, rocks, stones, the very tiles teach, if we only have ears to hear. Dogen has us listen, then, to the voices of the insentient. And the waters, the rivers are, for Dogen, an actualization of the fundamental point. Water flowing everywhere is that emptiness. Mountains and rivers, form and emptiness, both together, the world around and the world through us. If an outsider tells them, what you see as a palace is running water, the dragons and fish will be astonished, just as we are when we hear the words, mountains flow. But step onto a trail and flow with those hills, surf the clouds with those mountains. Dogen goes on to tell us, it's not only that there is water in the world, but there is a world in water. It is not just in water. There is also a world of sentient beings in clouds. There is a world of sentient beings in the air. There is a world of sentient beings in fire. There is a world of sentient beings on earth. There is a world of sentient beings in the phenomenal world. There is a world of sentient beings in a great blade of grass. There is a world of sentient beings in one staff. Wherever there is a world of sentient beings, there is a world of Buddha ancestors. When the mountains love their master, such a virtuous sage or wise person enters the mountains. Since mountains belong to the sages and wise people living there, trees and rocks become abundant, and birds and animals are inspired. Snyder, that mountain sage, reminds us that the insects, the trees, and the hills all share the same world, if on a different time scale. He writes, "As the cricket's soft autumn hum is to us, so are we to the trees, as are they to the rocks and the hills." And towards the end of that earlier poem, inspired by an artist's brush, turns to our Chinese and Japanese spiritual ancestors. Su Tongpo sat out one whole night by a creek on the slopes of Mount Lu. Next morning, he showed this poem to his teacher. The stream with its sounds is a long, broad tongue. The looming mountain is a wide awake body. Throughout the night, song after song. How can I speak at dawn? Old Master Chang Song approved him. 2 centuries later, Dogen said, "Sounds of streams and shapes of mountains, the sounds never stop, and the shapes never cease." Was it Su who woke, or was it the mountains and streams? Billions of beings see the morning star and all become Buddhas. If you, who are valley streams and looming mountains, can't throw some light on the nature of ridges and mountains, who can? Thank you.